Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some interesting poetry that I found recently. And today I wanted to talk about a poem that struck my fancy, that I took a liking to. It is about a woman talking about a young girl in the library, or so it would seem. I am referring to Girl in a Library by Gail Mazur. For those who don't know, Gail Mazur is an American poet who has been writing since the 1970s, and I think has gotten some stuff published pretty recently. So she's been writing for quite a length of time. Her recently deceased husband was also a writer, so of family writers right there, and she's won a number of awards for her work. I actually, I kept thinking as I was reading her work, oh, I've heard this before, or I've stumbled across this poet before, and I might have in some other thing that I've been doing, but it seems for this channel I haven't actually talked about Gail yet, it just happened to frequently stumble across this poet for one reason or another that I'm not quite sure why. And that's really all I seem to know about Gail Mazur. Her work frequently deals with both her life and feminism, those kind of things, and estrangement, and a lot of regret based on what I've been reading. A lot of sadness enmeshed in her poetry, and perhaps that's why I'm talking about it today. It's interesting in that regard. So without further ado, let's talk about Girl in a Library. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. Girl in a Library. I want to find my way back to her, to help her, to grab her hand, pull her up from the wooden floor of the stacks where she's reading accounts of the hatchet murders of Lizzie Borden's harsh parents, as if she could learn something about life if she knew all the cuts and slashes. Her essay on Wordsworth or Keats, only a knot in her belly, a faint pressure at her temples. She's pale. It's 5 years before the first migraine, but the dreamy flush has already drained from her face. I want to lead her out of the library, to sit with her on a bench under a still living elm tree, be one who understands. But even today I don't understand. I want to shake her and want to assure her, to hold her, but love's not safe for her. Although she craves what she knows of it, love's a snare, a closed door, a dank cell. Maybe she should just leave the campus, take a train to Fall River, inspect Lizzie's room, the rigid corsets and buttoned shoes, the horsehair sofas, the kitchen's rank stew, hell. Bleak, loyal, judgmental journals of a next-door neighbor, not a friend. Lizzie had no friend. If only she could follow one trajectory of thought, a plan, invent a journey out of this place, a vocation, but without me to guide her, where would she go? And what did I ever offer? What stiffening of spine? What goal? Rather, stiffening of soul, her soul cocooned in the library's trivia. Soul circling its lessons, what can I say before she walks like a ghost in white lace carrying her bouquet of stephanotis, her father beaming innocently at her side, a boy waiting, trembling to shape her. He's innocent too. We are all innocent, even Lizzie Borden, who surely did take the axe. It was so hot that summer morning, the hard-hearted stepmother, heavy hand of the father. There was another daughter they favored, and Lizzie stewing at home, heavy smell of mutton in the pores of history. But this girl, her story's still a mystery. I tell myself she's a quick study, a survivor. There's still time. Soon she'll close the bloody book, slink past the lit carols, through the library's heavy door to the world. Is it too late to try to touch her? Kneel beside her on the dusty floor where we're avoiding her assignment. In terms of analysis, Girl in a Library is a very sad and I would dare say not regretful but melancholic poem. It describes a narrator looking at a girl in a library. The narrator might not actually be there, but they're talking about how the girl is enmeshed in her books. Might be having an interesting time at the moment, but down the road things are going to be very difficult for her. She's going to start having headaches, which I don't know what that's quite about. She's going to walk down the aisle with a man, and it doesn't like the narrator doesn't really seem optimistic about that relationship. And she ultimately says that, or the narrator ultimately says that they want to take the young girl out of the library. One has to wonder, like, what is the relationship of the narrator to the young girl? They seem to know quite a bit about that young girl. Could it be Gail being a motherly figure to this girl, being the girl's mother in question, just noting what she's seen of this young girl, and also noting sort of like this is a reflection or like a retrospective of the future, where you're looking back and you're pointing out things that happened in the past and then noting how in the future you wish you could have changed some things in order for that child to have a better life. Maybe that might be the case. What I think is actually the case is that Gail, or the narrator, is talking about herself. Like she's reflecting on a time when she was in the library doing her study in a moment of kind of peace. Like it was the narrator was having a great time studying. But as things went on, things don't get as easy for the narrator. Like they become increasingly difficult. Like the narrator sort of recalling, how those halcyon days came and they went, and now all that's left is the suffering and sadness. For example, she says, but even today I don't understand. I want to shake her and I want to assure her to hold her, but love's not safe for her. Although she craves what she knows of it, love's a snare, a closed door, a dank cell. And that sounds like somebody has experience there. Like not merely just describing a young girl that they see, but describing themselves in the future. Like they tried to fall in love, they tried to have something, but nothing came of it. Nothing really worked out for them. And she also says, like, she's pale. It's 5 years before the first migraine, but the dreamy flush has already drained from her face. Maybe noting how, like, being in school, being in college, like, over time that wore her out. And as a result, she maybe didn't have time for anything else. Certainly, like if you know that much about the person, the girl in question, that certainly indicates a relationship right there. And then another aspect of the poem that kind of indicates like knowledge of this person is where she's describing walking down the aisle, where she says, "What can I say?" before she walks like a ghost in white lace, carrying her bouquet of stephanotis, her father beaming innocently at her side, a boy waiting, trembling to shape her. He's innocent too. We are all innocent. And I find that to be very interesting because usually we describe weddings as very happy events. But if we went through, say, a divorce, or the relationship wasn't as happy as we wanted it to be, you'd want to think back to that time, like before the wedding, and see how you could prevent that wedding from actually taking place. So very, very sad. And like she uses a lot of interesting words in this poem that would suggest, sadness, like soul circling its lessons, calling herself a survivor, using the term bloody book, and talking about Lizzie Borden, like a person known for murdering their parents. Lizzie Borden did not have a happy life, so using a historical figure to get across the sort of anguish or pain that this young girl must be feeling, either now, not speaking about it, or down the road that's in store for her. So those are my thoughts on Girl in a Library by Gail Mazur. A pretty sad and melancholic poem, as I was saying before. Usually when people reflect on their lives, like when they were young, they think positively about it. They use positive, like emotions, positive words. But here she's reflecting on her life, and she can only think about the hurt that comes afterwards. Even though she might be peaceful and zen, like in the moment, that's not what's coming for her later. And maybe that's all like that can influence her thoughts on that moment in time. Very, very sad and interesting. I'm going to put a link to it in the description so you can read it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's have a discussion about this poem. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem as well as the author, and we can get Poetry Thursday going around on BookTube. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and library travels. Farewell.